Hey everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're new, welcome. Thank you for joining. Please hit the subscribe and like button below. If you are not new, welcome back. And if you haven't already, like I said, hit that subscribe button, please. And if for those who don't know, my name is Libby, and I share a lot of content around eating disorders, wedding, health stuff, just mental health, just daily lives, fun stuff, bit of everything. So today, it's kind of a crazy one, so grab some popcorn, and let's get into the show. So, to start, the picture starts at July 3rd of this past year. So about 3 weeks ago. I was a typical Sunday morning, typical Sunday. I woke up, was at my sister's place. We had just went out with friends, a couple hours away from her house the day before. We took my engagement ring in to get it resized. We went out to eat. We went to the movies. We went shopping. We had some fun, tried Krispy Kremes. We were living our best life. That morning we woke up and we went to Trader Joe's. We were out having fun. And then as this is hi, we were spending the morning just having fun after waking up a little bit later because we didn't get to bed till midnight. At least I didn't. And then my sister didn't get to bed till probably like 2 a.m. And we were coming into her apartment, and I was entering the apartment building because there's a hall where you have where you have your mailboxes, and then you go into the other hall that has like the apartment doors. And hers is in there. And we're heading into there, about to have lunch, and then go on my sister's motorcycle, and then go do some wedding DIY stuff. And I ended up getting a phone call as she was putting in the code to get into the front door, and she was getting in. And I answered it as we both walked into the front hall. And she grabbed her mail. As I took it, I saw that it was my mom's name came up, and our picture came up. And I was like, oh, she's probably just trying to get hold of my sister because my sister never answers her phone. And she knew I was with my sister that weekend. So I answered it expecting her to want to talk to my sister because she never calls me unless she wants to get hold of my sister. I'm always calling her. And she called, and so I answered, and they're like, hello, is this Elizabeth? And I'm like, the frick? So I look at the phone to make sure I saw it right, that it was my mom's number, and I'm like, yes, this is her. And they're like, hello, this is blank, the house supervisor of blank hospital. And it was the hospital I work at. And I'm like, the double frick? And I'm like, yes, like, why is work calling on my mom's phone? Like, because 2 days earlier, that Friday, they had sent out a call saying they were in need of critical one-on-one staff. And obviously I couldn't because I already had plans that weekend. And so I was like, this is really strange. And she's like, do you have a moment? I'm like, yeah, I do. And my sister had grabbed her mail and was walking walked through the hall and opened the door and was in her apartment. And I was about to follow her, really confused. And I was finally following her, finally opening her apartment door. And the lady was like, your parents have been in a motorcycle accident. And I just froze. I had just entered her apartment. My sister was in her little kitchen area at the island. We were about to make lunch, so she was starting to prep lunch because we were going to grill and then go on a motorcycle ride, ironically. And I just froze. My dad doesn't wear a helmet. So my first thought was that he was brain dead. In that moment, I thought I had lost at least my dad, if not both of my parents. I, for a split second, saw me and my sister having to call my brother from the other countries he's in, because he's in Colombia, and having to tell him we have to make the decision to unplug our parents or not. And I have never been so terrified in my life at that moment. It was the most overwhelming, 30 seconds of my life. And then I just asked, are they awake? Because she was like, but they are here and they are fine. And I'm like, are they awake? Like, are they awake? And she was like, yes, they're both awake. They both seem to be able to form sentences and talk a little bit. And they're just got here and they're just getting their initial test done to check for all those initial things like brain bleeds and all those things. And she didn't have a bunch of information because they had literally just arrived there by ambulance and were just getting those initial tests done to make sure that they were okay. Like, because, obviously their first priority was to check for internal injuries when you're in a motorcycle accident. And I didn't know anything. And the lady didn't have too much information. She just wanted to make us aware. But she was like, but your mom was able to press buttons on her phone and pull up your number and call and dial your number. And she's speaking to us. Your dad, I haven't been into his room yet. But from what I've heard, he's up and talking at least. And able to form sentences. And so it relieved my anxiety a little bit to know they were at least awake and talking. But obviously that still doesn't confirm, like, maybe my parents did have a brain bleed, especially my dad not wearing a helmet. Like, what had happened? Like, I don't even know. Like, she didn't really have much information at all. And it was super chaotic. And then she was like, your mom wants you to call your grandma, my mom's mom, because both of my grandparents on my dad's side have passed. She's like, she wants you to call your grandma, her mother, and let them know about the accident. And your brother too. And I was like, okay. So I called my grandma and right away and told her, and she was like, okay, please, when you get there, call me with any updates. And then I called my brother and it was like, due to the subscriber's request, they're not taking incoming calls. He's in Colombia. So I figured he just turned off his incoming calls. So I texted him and Facebook messaged him. No answer. Figured it might be a while. I didn't know what time it was in Colombia. And my sister, I didn't think my sister was going to come to the hospital. I figured I would just drive straight to the hospital. But then I got a call and it was my mom actually. And she was like, you could tell she was kind of out of it and not doing hot at all. But she wanted us to go to their house about 30 minutes from my house, about 20 minutes from my house, and about 40 minutes from the 45 minutes from the hospital they were at, and get clothes because their clothes were shredded, completely shredded from the accident. And what was held together was ripped off when they were loaded into the ambulance. And so my sister was like, you're crazy if you think I'm not going with you. So her roommate suggested, well, she has the day off tomorrow. Why don't you just go all in one vehicle and then come back tomorrow and maybe you grab your vehicle tomorrow night? And I'm like, okay, good, because I don't really want to drive right now anyway. I'm not in an emotional state to drive. So we took my sister's car, drove an hour and something to my parents' place, quickly grabbed all their stuff and loaded it in a bag that my mom advised us to. The cat, that's my uncle's cat, got out. So we had to try to chase that cat. It scratched me on my face and on my hands, started bleeding. We called my mom freaking out, like, we don't know what to do. Do you have our uncle's number so we can call him and let him know his cat's out? Like, what do we do? And she's like, oh, the neighbors next door, they take care of the cat too. Let them know and they'll help get the cat inside. So we went over. They were actually outside on their porch. We let them know. They're like, okay, you go, take care of your parents. We will get the cat inside. You don't worry about that. Just go right now. So we flew to the hospital. My dad and mom were both still in the ER. And my dad was getting stitches in his forehead. He had already gotten stitches in his knees. He was getting stitches in his forehead. There was so much blood. It was terrifying. Like, so much blood around his head. You could tell, had a severe concussion because it was taking him like seconds. Like, it was taking him a long time to form sentences. Like, you could tell he was thinking through a fog. Like, it took him a minute to like actually say what he wanted to say. And then he was crying, which I've only seen him cry once, and that was the night of my grandpa's funeral. And it was at home when he thought no one knew he was crying, could hear him or see him. And he was crying, freaking out about my mom, wondering what was wrong with her, so concerned about my mom. Where's mom? Where's mom? Where's mom? Is she okay? Is she alive? What's going on with mom? What's going on with mom? What's going on with mom? And then my mom was in the other room, kind of just terrified. So she was like in such shock, she like really couldn't speak and was just sitting there like kind of just like like, you could tell was, like, paralyzed in fear of what just happened and trauma. And my uncle, who they were going to meet to go out to lunch and go to on a motorcycle ride with him, because he also rides a motorcycle, had called, found out what happened because they hadn't met him. So he was kind of worried, like, why hadn't they met me at this? Why hadn't they shown up yet? So he raced to the hospital, was closer, and got there before we did. So he was in my dad's room in the ER. They got sent up after us being there. And the crazy thing is, another motorcycle accident came in after my sister and I arrived, and it was a 20-year-old, and he ended up passing. Crazy day. They ended up getting sent to the medical floor upstairs. One of the 2 medical floors upstairs that I work, and I go on that unit, so I know it. And it was just insane. We had to get, visiting hours were over when they got shipped up, so I had to quickly get them situated, make sure they were all right, make sure they had everything they needed, make sure they had dinner ordered, and it was on its way, made sure they were comfortable. My dad had to get transferred via, like, a sliding board, and I had to move out of the room because he had no clothes on and just a blanket, and I could hear him scream in pain as they moved him. The 2 nice male workers moved him from the bed of the ER they had brought him up on to the bed of the medical unit. I could hear his scream, and just the most horrendous thing. And then just leaving your parents in the hospital after such a tragic accident, and, like, they should have been dead. Straight up, my parents should have been dead, especially my dad. And it just, oh, mother of pearl. I'm sorry. That night I got no sleep. No sleep. I could not sleep. I wanted to get there right away in the morning. I didn't have my car, which I should have drove my car, but I didn't. So I didn't have my car. And my sister likes to sleep in. So my fiance drove me early in the morning, like right as visiting hours started, to go see my parents. And I brought them, like, goodies. I stopped at the store and got them, like, a goodie bag full of some comfort food and comfort stuff for them. Like a face mask for my mom and Cheetos she likes, and some, reading glasses for my dad because his glasses broke in the accident. His prescription reading glasses. And it was just, my dad ended up breaking his wrist, and his right wrist, so his writing wrist, and then his left foot, and then my mom broke her left leg. So my mom left the hospital the next day, 24 hours after the accident. She left the hospital in a walker, with the walker. They sent my dad out, which the PT who saw him even is like, what the heck were they thinking letting him out 24 hours out of the accident? It was because it was the 4th of July weekend, and they didn't give a crap. They were just numbers to them and just scooting them out, being lazy, and it was frustrating. But they sent my dad out 24 hours after this accident. No one of our family thought he should go. No one. They hadn't had a foot specialist see his foot. The next day, the foot specialist, they had an appointment with the foot. They called that the next morning after being discharged and said, we need an appointment. We were told to make an appointment with you, this foot specialist. And she's like, okay, come in today. They came in and she was like, oh no, honey. You need to be in a wheelchair for 4 weeks, a whole month. You shouldn't be putting weight on that foot and be walking around on a crutch. And it was insane. So they just totally just didn't, they needed to keep my dad there and do more tests and get things more figured out with him, because they didn't even know exactly what was going on with his foot. Sent him home too prematurely, which don't even get me started on it. Anyway, so I was freaking out because I'm like texting my boss because I didn't know if I would have to take FMLA to go to my parents' house 25 minutes away from my house and stay with them. But luckily my grandparents, who live 5 minutes away from me, outside of town, was like, they're staying with us. So I go over every night after work, or on the days I have off, weekends. I go over there during the day, check in with them. I take them to appointments when I have the time to. Like today, I took my dad to his PT appointment, or his OT appointment, for his wrist, his OT eval. Because my mom's doing PT twice a week. My dad's doing OT now twice a week, and then he'll probably have to start PT, but he has to wait to see the foot specialist in 2 weeks. And they go back to see the orthopedic surgeon, both of them, in 4 weeks. My mom for her leg and my dad for his foot. So I've been helping them. Like, the night they came home, I went and got my car. My grandparents drove them home. Well, I went and got my car from my sister's place, an hour and a half away from where I live. Then I went straight from my sister's apartment to my grandparents' house, helped them into bed. Like, help them brush their teeth, get them into bed, get them their medicine by their nightstand, the food they needed at the nightstand because they had to take certain medicines with food. It was just, my dad, like, can't use his writing hand at the moment. Couldn't. He just got the sutures removed and got it in a brace and started OT. So he has a little bit more movement and being able to use that. But it's just, he is one that was raised by a farmer, hard work ethic. So he is so livid right now because he is not able to do jack crap for himself. And because he needs to heal. And that's just, it's so frustrating because he wants to do things and it's hard to see your parents not being able to do things. Like, it's so heartbreaking. And you're like, but you're also frustrated at them because they want to do more than what they should. And you're like, no, rest your body. And it's just, it has been a lot. Let's just say that. Pretty much my days are work, then go see my parents, or go see my parents on days I have off, or take them to appointments on days I have off. Or make their appointments on days I have off so I can take them so my grandparents don't have to. But yeah, let's just say July's been fun. So yeah, that's a little update. Keep you posted, and hope you guys are having a better July than I am. And I just try to remember, I'm thankful that my parents are still alive. Very grateful. God was looking out for them. Very looking out for them. And I would rather be taking them to appointments and going to see them every day and taking care of them than them be dead. And I'm just very thankful that it wasn't worse. So, but funny tidbit. So what happened is they were on the highway. Cruise set at 70. They were going this way. This guy pulled out this way to go to the median, and apparently he must have not seen them, and just pulled out, and they hit the back of the vehicle as my dad tried to brake from this guy suddenly pulling out in front of them. They hit with enough force. They turned the vehicle and flew over the car. Like, my dad remembers seeing the hood of the car as he flew. And all my mom remembers is, like, because she was listening to music. She just was trying to close her eyes because she doesn't like being on a motorcycle, but she does it for her husband. She just remembers him all of a sudden braking. She opens her eyes, and then she just goes flying. Remembers bright sun, bright sky, and the hot concrete, and people yelling, trying to keep them, stabilized while the ambulance comes. And the guy was also in a rental car. I'm sorry. Okay. But just a public service announcement. Watch out for motorcyclists. Be safe. Be smart. Love you all. Please subscribe. And bless you all.